Hello, preppers. Welcome to another unscripted ramble through prepper issues. This one being communities. So, when I talk about communities, I am mainly talking about post-SHTF communities. Now, I know there's communities of preppers out there now, there's forums, we have a community even on here. There's communities of preppers that follow larger preppers on here. So I know we already have them, but let's be honest, lots of these people are online personas that you may never meet, you may never shake hands with, you may never cross paths with, through distance, through the sake of communication. So to start with, I'd like to say that if you're part of MAGs or you're joining MAGs is mutual assistant groups, for those who didn't know, but I would encourage you to take more action now in the current climate we are to meet people, to meet up with your mutual assistant groups in a group, safe, somewhere that you can all meet up, camping, whatever you decide to do. But just start to get to know these people, get an action plan in place of what you're going to do to come together. It's no good 10 people that are in a mutual assistant group all sat there thinking they'll come to me. It's fine if you have no plan. So think of how that's going to work, who's got the space, or if there's no space, where you're going to go to, so on and so forth. So make sure your MAG is not just a chat room, but actually something that can take action, have a form of communication with power, without power, with internet, without internet, because all these case scenarios might be the way. Yeah. So make sure you've got plans in place with them. And I know within our community, there's a lot of lone wolves. There's lots of people through operational security, won't tell anyone they prep, and will literally bug in until they're down to their last can of beans, So I know we've got a lot of them, but hopefully I think there's strength in numbers, and I think community coming together in a crisis, in something like that, is the human way, the better way. But each to their own on that one. So, do you want to hide, or do you want to stand up and be counted and do something for your local community? For me, it's definitely the latter. Now, how would my prepper community, my ideal prepper community look? Well, we've got to look at key titles, key sections, being leadership and security, water and sanitation, farming and hunting, medical, construction, supplies and catering, and safe areas for children and things like that. The youth is to be considered. I have kids, so I want it to be a consideration of any sort of group or community I'm with. Now, leadership and security, that's the big scary one. That's the Walking Dead kind of communities, the saviors. That's not what I'm talking about. It's important for me that there is some sort of leadership, whether that's a small group of people, or whether that's an individual, because they have to have the say on difficult and final decisions. Democracy is very important in a small group, that everybody has a voice. Think town council meetings, think things like that, community meetings. That's the kind of thing you want to be doing within your community, so people just don't feel oppressed. You can't run this like we're run at the moment. It doesn't work, clearly. But the security side of it needs to be obviously armed and physical people security, and like walls, even if necessary. If you live in a cul-de-sac, blocking the road with something so vehicles can't come in, however you decide that's the best way, that's what you've got to look at. And the security as well has to be looked at internal threats, because I assume you're not going to close off a community. I wouldn't want to close off a community. I'd want people to come in and join and give back. So the security's got to be there to handle anything you can invite the nicest person in the world in and they can snap. Yeah. So security for me is very important. So then after that, you've got water and sanitation. Now, water is a given. And we're talking about a consistent, clean water supply. Whether that's something you've got to boil each time, whether that's a constant, whether it's a form of running water from somewhere, reservoir, wherever you're getting the water from, it needs to be a consistent source and clean, obviously, as clean as possible in that situation. And with cleanliness in mind, sanitation cannot be overlooked. This is why it's quite high on my priority list, because you might not think it straight away, but after about a month, you'll start to think of the sanitation. Yeah. Not just rubbish laying about. I mean, toilet, sewers backed up, things like that. You've got to have a plan in place to deal with that kind of things. And obviously hygiene, good hygiene reduces the need for medical to a degree, to a small degree, but still massively affects it. Which obviously brings us on to the medical side. A doctor would be nice to join the community, so give us a shout if you are one. But obviously any trained personnel, you've got paramedics, you've got nurses, you've got even midwives, all have forms of medical training. You yourself, I recommend first aid courses. I've done first aid courses with the FA. Obviously in the military, you learn a lot of stuff as well. So there's levels. Now, what you lack, in skilled individuals, you need to make up for in educational materials. So this is why one of my big preps at the moment is building a library of knowledge, medical knowledge, medication, building, everything. So everything you could possibly need in Teotihuacan. If you don't have a joiner, but you need to do some woodwork, you want the books there at least to instruct you. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to be pretty, but hopefully it's not open heart surgery. But when it comes to minor ailments, it might be better to diagnose with a library on your back. Farming and hunting. Now, bear in mind, I'm the urban prepper, so I'm not exactly surrounded by arable farmland. But when I say farming, I'm talking about anything you can grow your own. Okay, self-sufficiency is one of my goals. But I don't want just self-sufficiency. I don't want to grow enough just for me to eat. I want like a community-based self-sufficiency, raised beds, stuff like that, growing as much as we possibly can to make community meals to help on top of whatever supplies we've got. Because eventually, let's be fair, if the SHTF situation never gets resolved, that nothing ever picks back up, then you have to be self-sufficient. It's the only way forward. Eventually, you're going to run out of pre-tinned goods, in a few years' time. So we will see on that one. But hunting, again, the same sort of thing. It depends where you are and the availability. Being the urban prepper, my version of hunting would be pigeons, rats. These are all forms of meat. Doesn't sound appealing, I know right now, but when it gets to that stage, you want to be able to trap, hunt, and capture small game, anything you can. So people specifically to do that as a job, great asset. Supplies and catering. So I wanted to touch on this because obviously we've all seen the post-apocalyptic series and films, and they're always doing supply runs. Oh, that pharmacy's probably not hit. Let's go down there. So that's going to be a thing. You are going to have to go out looking for supplies at some point, or ideally you will if it's safe and practical. But catering, I want you to think of it as like school canteen. It's no good, Bob at number 2 having loads of food in, but Frank at number 4 has got nothing in but beans, and then somebody at number 6 has nothing at all, and somebody at 8 has a load of chocolate. That's pointless. You need to literally pool all your community resources when it comes to food at the very beginning. I know this can cause a bit of aggro. People don't want to give up their supplies, but I think if you're committing to being part of a group like that, that should be part of the commitment. And this can then be gathered, inventoried, and then literally cooked in I think of like prison, military, schools, anything like that. When you're making meals en masse, you can make less ingredients go a lot further than just cooking for individuals. There's a lot less waste. Trust me on this. It's the way to go. Meal times, fixed meal times, everyone comes, mess hall, shifts, or whatever you have to do. That's the way to do it as far as I'm concerned. And when it comes to other supplies, obviously try and pull what you can. But a quartermaster is a great role to have, especially when it comes to weaponry and things like that can be issued when people need it and can be safely locked away when they don't. Stops accidents. Yeah. So I think, I made a few notes. So this is usually unscripted, but there was a lot to cover, so I kind of made a few notes. The safe areas, I have kids, so I get that nothing might be a safe area at the beginning, but eventually I would hope that I'm part of a community where there's more than just my kids, there's several kids, and they can have some sort of carefreeness still. I would definitely start teaching them the new way of the world if needs be. You know, we grow it, we eat it, we kill it, we cook it, we eat it. There's no more Sainsbury's, there's no more Uber Eats. You've got to go through all that. But I'd like them to have some sort of safe area, some sort of community with the other children, you know, because you don't want to lose that. You don't want your kids to completely lose their innocence. I know I'm probably talking idyllic scenarios here, but we are talking months down the line after the initial event. So, yeah, just remember the key is knowledge. If you know doctors, books. If you've no joiners, books. If you've no chefs, books. Yeah, books are the answer. I know a lot of people keep information on tablets. Great, as long as you've got it in the Faraday cage and you've got some way to charge it afterwards. But books don't run out of battery. Books don't need charging. I'm telling you, it's the way forward. So, lastly, I want to touch on building that community then. So strangers down the road. Yeah. So we've all seen it. Again, movies and stuff. That's where you get a lot of this stuff from, is it right? That's the first thing you think of, like all these different movies where people come in and he's a bad guy and he cut them all up, blah, blah, blah. As long as you've got some sort of rules and guidelines for your community, keep them simple, keep them fair, keep them logical. Yeah. Don't have an entire employee handbook like I get when I start a job that nobody's going to ever read back to back. Just very simple commandments, as it were. These are the rules. Stick to them. Everyone's good. Yeah. So as long as they agree to stick to them and come in and contribute, then you should be welcoming people with open arms. The more, I was going to say the more the merrier, but probably it's not merrier at that stage. But again, safety in numbers, strength in numbers. And be ready to adapt as well. And by adapt, I don't mean, oh no, here comes a guy with an eye patch in a tank, run away. Obviously, adapt to them situations, but be ready to adapt back to civilization. Yeah, embrace the return of government and law and order as that happens, if it happens. You know, we don't want Custer's last stand with all these little communities with crossbows holding out against the government forces, as it were. Yeah, you need to embrace that back to the sooner we do, the sooner we get back to some sort of normality, the country becomes whole again. So, yeah, that's my SHTF community. Let us know if you want to join. Speaking of communities, I do have a forum set up now. It's just ukprep.co.uk. Great domain, nice and short, easy to remember. Head over there, sign up to that if you're interested. Again, Our rules are very simple. Have a look. Just be nice. Come on in, join in. It might help you to build them network connections and them mags where you are. That's about it. That's my ramble. I'm probably going to listen back to this thinking, what a load of old. But it's out there now. Enjoy. Thanks for watching, taking the time, and I will speak to you all in the next video.